Ever feel like there's just, well, too much information out there, especially in fields like sports science?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, every day there's a new study, maybe a new training method, or, another debate. It can feel pretty overwhelming trying to cut through all that noise.
Definitely. Finding what's truly impactful is the challenge.
Exactly. And that's precisely what this deep dive is all about, giving you the essential insights. Sort of a shortcut to being well-informed without getting totally buried in the details. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a fascinating study. It tackles a question many athletes and coaches ponder. Does the timing of high-intensity interval training actually affect technical accuracy when you're under fatigue? This comes from an experimental study. It's published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, and the title is, Does the Timing of High-Intensity Interval Training Affect Technical Accuracy Under Fatigue? An experimental study in basketball players.
Right.
The authors are Xinyi, Jingjing Wang, and Jingjing.
Yeah. And what's truly compelling about this research, I think, is how it addresses a very practical challenge, but with, real scientific rigor.
Right.
We're talking about how the moment you integrate that high-intensity work into a training session could significantly impact not just your fitness, but crucially, your ability to execute skills precisely when you're tired.
That order of operations thing.
Exactly. For anyone involved in sports, the order of operations in training often feels like a puzzle, right? And this study offers some really important pieces.
Okay, so our mission today is basically to break down this study. We want to do it with scientific clarity, but keep it accessible and relevant to you.
Yeah, make it usable.
We'll look at what high-intensity interval training actually is, how these researchers set up their experiment, what they discovered, and maybe most importantly, what these findings could mean for your training or coaching philosophy. Whether you're an athlete, a coach, or just, really curious about optimizing performance. So let's start with the basics then. High-intensity interval training, or HIIT, it's everywhere these days, isn't it? Known for being incredibly efficient.
It really is.
But beyond the buzz, what exactly is it, and why has it become such a go-to method, especially in dynamic stop-and-go sports like basketball?
Well, HIIT involves these short, really intense bursts of exercise, followed by brief recovery periods. It's effective because it pushes your body, forces it to adapt rapidly. And the research definitely backs this up. It significantly enhances cardiorespiratory fitness. I mean, studies show pretty impressive gains in endurance, sometimes over 10% in just 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow, okay.
And it also boosts anaerobic performance, which is just vital for those explosive movements like sprints, powerful jumps, and, maintaining muscle endurance during repeated high-effort plays. And here's where it gets particularly interesting for basketball. HIIT has been found to improve not just general physical stuff, but also specific game skills like dribbling, passing, shooting.
So directly impacting play.
Exactly. And from a coach's standpoint, it's time efficiency compared to, say, conventional longer duration, lower intensity training. That makes it a very appealing choice. It's really about getting maximum impact in less time.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, given all those benefits, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer, right?
You'd think so.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, while HIIT's physical advantages are pretty well established, the impact of its timing within a training session, that seems to be largely unexplored in the scientific literature.
It's the gap they're looking at, yeah.
Which brings us to the core question this study investigated. When should you actually implement HIIT? At the beginning or maybe at the end of a session?
Exactly. The physical benefits, they're clear. But the optimal order of training elements is a much more nuanced question. And it's crucial because a game like basketball is almost constantly played under fatigue.
Oh, yeah. Late game especially.
Totally. Think about a late game situation. Research clearly indicates that acute fatigue can significantly influence a player's tactical decision-making, their overall performance. You might see tired players making fewer impactful actions near the ball, maybe increasing errors in defensive movements.
Little mistakes creep in.
Right. And the intense physical effort during those high-intensity drills also correlates with increased mental fatigue, which directly affects tactical performance. So this all leads to this fascinating debate among coaches and sports scientists. Well, should you push high-intensity efforts before skill and tactical training to kind of prepare players for that game-like fatigue, or do you do it after to focus on skill acquisition when they're fresh? That's precisely what this study aimed to illuminate.
Okay, let's dive into how these researchers actually set up your experiment then. To answer this critical question, Who did they study, and what did their training programs look like over time?
So the study involved 36 male youth basketball players. They were all around 16 and a half years old, average age.
Okay, youth players.
Yep, members of 3 local-level basketball teams in China. And importantly, they each had at least 2 years of training experience, and they were all healthy and injury-free to ensure the results were clear.
Got it. And they use something called a randomized parallel design. That sounds pretty scientific. For us, the listeners, what does that mean in practical terms? How do they run the study?
Right. It basically means the participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 distinct groups, and each group followed a different training approach, side by side or in parallel.
Okay.
So the first group was the high ITRLE group. They did their high-intensity interval training right after warm-up. Then they moved into their regular technical and tactical basketball training.
HIIT first.
HIIT first. The second was the HIT post group. They did it the other way around, regular technical and tactical drills first, and then they completed their HIIT at the very end of the session.
Okay, HIIT last.
Exactly. And finally, there was a control group. They followed the same regular training schedule, but didn't include any specific HIE intervention. Now, all groups trained twice a week for 6 weeks, and it's crucial to understand this. The HIIT protocol itself, like the exercises and intensity, was identical for both the HIIT and HI post groups. The only difference was the timing.
Just when they did it.
Just when. In the HI8 volume, it progressively increased too. Started at about 9 minutes per session in week 1, built up to 20 minutes by week 6, with intensities kept quite high, between 85 and 95% of their maximal running speed.
Okay, that's pretty intense. And how did they measure the improvements, not just in overall fitness, but in those crucial basketball skills, especially when players were tired?
Good question. They used specific assessment methods, and importantly, they were consistently conducted by the same researchers to keep things reliable.
Okay.
For aerobic fitness, they used the 30-15 intermittent fitness test, the 30-15 IFT. This test involves running back and forth over 40 meters, speeds increase, short recovery periods.
Yeah.
It really mimics the stop-and-go demands of basketball quite well.
Right, like shuttle runs, but structured.
Exactly. The key outcome there was VIFT, which basically represents the maximal running speed a player could sustain during that test. Then, for technical accuracy under fatigue, they took it straight to the court. Immediately after the 30-15 IFT, which, remember, is designed to induce significant fatigue, players jumped into a simulated 10-minute 3-on-3 basketball game, half-court.
Game situation.
Right. Researchers then meticulously analyzed their accuracy in 3 key areas: successful passes that kept possession, dribbles where the player beat an opponent or kept the ball under pressure, and shots that actually went in and scored.
So they weren't just checking fitness in a lab environment. They were specifically looking at how that training timing impacted performance when players were already tired.
Precisely. Which is so relevant to a real game, isn't it?
Totally. It's not just about how fast they can run. It's about how well they can execute under pressure when it counts. So, what happened then? Over those 6 weeks for each group, let's get to the good stuff. Starting with overall fitness.
Okay, yeah. For aerobic fitness, measured by that VIT score, the results were very clear. Both the high ITRLE and the AD post groups showed significant improvements in their fitness levels. Statistically significant.
Both improved.
Both improved. The control group, however, showed no real change. So this tells us that by the end of the study, both groups that actually did HI8 had much higher fitness scores compared to the control group.
Makes sense.
However, and this is an important distinction, there was no significant difference in those fitness levels between the high ITRLE and ITOPOS groups themselves.
Oh, okay.
So if your main goal is just getting fitter aerobically, this study suggests that any HI8, regardless of when you do it within the session, effectively boosts players' aerobic capacity.
That's a really clear takeaway for fitness then. But what about those crucial basketball skills? Especially performed when players are fatigued, which, like you said, is where games are often won or lost. Did timing make a difference there?
Yes. This is where the timing truly seemed to matter. The study found a strong influence of timing on all the technical variables, passes, dribbles, and shots.
How so?
Well, the way accuracy changed over the 6 weeks was distinctly different across the groups. the statistics showed significant interaction effects, which basically means the improvement, or lack thereof, depended heavily on which group the players were in. It indicates a substantial impact on skill accuracy depending on when the HII was performed.
Okay. Let's break that down for each skill then. Starting with passing and shooting, those often require high precision, especially under pressure, right?
Exactly. So for passes accuracy, the HIA group, the ones doing HIIT, first showed very clear and strong improvements compared to the control group. Very significant difference.
Okay. What about HIIT post?
Well, the HII post group also improved from their own starting point, which is good. But crucially, their improvement wasn't statistically superior to the control group by the end, nor did it match the gains seen in the high-tierly group for passing.
Interesting. And shooting, same pattern.
Very similar for shot accuracy. Again, the high-tierly group showed significantly higher accuracy compared to the control group at the end. And again, the HII post group did get better from their baseline, yes.
Correct.
But their final accuracy wasn't significantly different from either the control group or that high-performing high-tierly group.
Wow. Okay. So early HIIT seems key for precision skills. What about dribbling accuracy? Was that different?
It was a bit different, yeah. Here, all groups, including the control group, demonstrated clear improvements from the beginning to the end of the study.
Even a control.
Even the control group improved significantly in dribbling. And importantly, there were no significant differences found between the groups after the intervention for dribbling.
So timing didn't matter for dribbling as much.
It seems not. The timing of HIIT didn't give one group a clear advantage over the others, specifically in dribbling accuracy, based on these results.
Okay, so what does this all mean then for someone listening, maybe a coach or an athlete trying to optimize training? The big sort of aha moment here seems to be that putting your high-intensity training at the beginning of your session, that offered a distinct advantage for those precision skills like passing and shooting, especially when players were performing under fatigue.
That's the main takeaway on the skill side, yes.
So that's the what. Now for the why, I mean, why do we see these differences, especially with early session HII standing out so much for passing and shooting accuracy under fatigue? What might be going on sort of behind the scenes physiologically or mentally?
Right. The study proposes several potential mechanisms. One key idea is that performing HIIT before the tactical training likely increased the player's acute neuromuscular fatigue and also their cognitive load right before they did their skill work.
So it made the skill practice harder.
Essentially, yes. And that's critical because it effectively simulates the high-pressure fatigue conditions you experience in a real game. By forcing players to adapt and execute skills under that specific stress, it seems to foster greater adaptations in skill execution in those very conditions.
Practicing under game-like stress.
Exactly. This concept actually aligns pretty well with something called the contextual interference effect in motor learning.
Okay, what's that?
Think of it like this. It's kind of like learning to drive on a busy highway right away instead of just practicing in an empty parking lot first. Practicing skills in more challenging, varied conditions in this case, physiologically demanding ones, seems to enhance learning and makes those skills transfer better to real game fatigue scenarios.
Makes sense. Any of the reasons?
Well, additionally, doing HIIT early might have sort of primed the player's arousal and attentional focus for the skill training that followed. Made them more mentally ready, perhaps, to learn and execute with precision during those drills.
Okay, so what about the other side? Why might HIIT after skill work be less effective, at least for these precision skills?
Good point. In contrast, when HIIT followed skill training in that HII2's group, the players may have simply experienced the residual fatigue after their main technical drills were done. So they didn't get the same opportunity for skill-specific adaptations under that crucial game-like pressure during the skill practice itself.
I see. The timing of the fatigue matters for the skill adaptation.
It seems so. This could limit adaptations, particularly for those precision-dependent skills like passing and shooting.
And why was dribbling different? You mentioned it improved across all groups, even the control.
Yeah, dribbling was the outlier. The study suggests a few possibilities. One is maybe a ceiling effect. Dribbling accuracy might have already been relatively high for these players at the start, which limits the potential for further substantial improvement from this specific intervention.
They were already pretty good dribblers.
Possibly. It's also possible that some more automatized skills, like dribbling often becomes, tend to plateau earlier in development and might just be less sensitive to variations in training interventions like timing.
Okay.
Plus, dribbling might simply be less influenced by fatigue compared to higher precision skills like shooting or passing. And, of course, the general improvement across all groups could also simply reflect the benefits of regular on-court practice and general skill development over the 6 weeks, regardless of the HIIT timing.
Right, just practicing helps. Okay, so while these findings are super insightful and they really give us a lot to think about, it's also important, as always, to remember that no scientific study is without its boundaries, right?
Absolutely essential to keep in mind.
What are some of the limitations here that we should be aware of, and maybe what's next for this line of research?
Okay, good points. First, regarding the study's generalizability, remember, the participants were youth players from local level teams.
Right, not pros.
Not pros, not elite college players. This means the findings may not directly apply to higher level or adult athletes. Their skill levels, physical capacities might lead to different adaptations or maybe even hit those ceiling effects quicker for certain skills. Second, concerning fatigue measurement. Although the 3-on-3 game was designed to be demanding and happened right after that fatiguing fitness test, specific physiological fatigue measurements weren't taken during the game itself.
Ah, okay.
So we can't confirm the exact fatigue levels for each player at that precise moment they were performing the skills. They did use a questionnaire on perceived fatigue, but that was administered after the game, not live during the skill test.
Gotcha.
What else? Third, the study duration was relatively short, just 6 weeks. Now, that might not be long enough to fully reveal long-term adaptations, physiological, physical coordination changes, or to see how training progression might differ between these groups over, say, an entire competitive season.
6 weeks isn't very long in a training cycle.
Not really. And finally, the use of convenience sampling. While it's really common in sports science because recruiting specific athlete groups can be tough, it does mean the participants might not perfectly represent a broader population compared to, say, true random sampling.
Okay, those are important points. So where does the research go from here?
Well, these limitations really open up some exciting avenues for future research. We need studies that delve into the underlying mechanisms